Hebrews 11 honors the champions of faith who wandered in deserts and in mountains and caves of the earth. Because of this cloud of witnesses, we can run with patience the race that is set before us. As the God of heavens had chosen a people to call his own, so also he chose the man Moses to be their deliverer, one who would give his law, his testimony.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu.
Blessed be the Lord our God. Blessed be the God of our forefathers, the God of Israel, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Ani modeh lacha.
I thank you. And the 2 tablets of testimony were the writing of God, written in stone upon both sides. Out of the oppression and bondage of Egypt, Moses led the children of Israel and took the law to the people. Often alone and without support from a nation in Exodus, Moses endured in the wilderness on the strength of his faith and his trust in the great I Am. A friend of God and champion of faith, Moses looked toward the future and the promise of the reward that awaited him. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible, and he is left to all those who would follow the enduring word of the Lord.
Well, our topic today is Moses and endurance. Shalom. Hello again. Welcome back to our series on faith. We're going through Hebrews 11 and the various heroes in the Old Testament and the characteristics of their walk with the Lord. You saw Moses walking down the mountain after he confronted God and in our little drama. His story is given in brief in Hebrews 11, starting at verse 24. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Imagine what a comfortable life Moses really would have had growing up in the Egyptian palace, not merely like a courtier or like a member of the king's entourage, but Pharaoh's daughter's son. Imagine that. He would be in the intimate company of the highest rulers in Egypt, which at that time virtually ruled the known world. Instead, he went with the chosen people. What a choice, with slaves. And then it says, in esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt. What does that mean? Did Moses know Christ? Not exactly. The word Christ is Messiah, and it was already well published and within the knowledge of Moses that Messiah would come one day and would forgive an unregenerate people who have filed their sacrifices, done their obedience, kept their faith in order. And he esteemed the Messiah's estimations of him even greater than the riches of the court of Egypt, which is quite a statement. For he had respect, it says, unto the recompense of the reward. Romans 3:25, God would go on with an unregenerate people until the coming of Messiah. Moses had an eye for the coming of Messiah, and that was indeed a good thing to do. In Hebrews 12:2 and 3, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, this is us looking forward to Messiah, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endureth such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds. When we are tired of obeying, think of Christ's obedience. When we are tired of confronting sin around us, think of how he confronted sin. And as far as endurance goes, I think the biblical champion really must be Job. Job was in his grave a long, long time, and he was waiting for resurrection a long, long time. I'm going to go to Job 14, verse 11. He says to God, "As the waters fail from the sea, and the flood drieth up and decayeth, so man lieth down and riseth not, till the heavens be no more. They shall not awake, nor be raised out of their sleep." If we stopped reading there, we would say Job is merely observing that all things die, everything in nature, and men die, and floods go away even. He says, "Oh, that," in verse 13, "Oh, that thou wouldst hide me in the grave, that thou wouldst keep me secret until thy wrath be past, that thou wouldst appoint me a set time and remember me." This word "set time" in Hebrew, temunah, is an exact time. As a matter of fact, it's used by the military to address the length of your hitch in the army. That is up at a certain hour, as a certain day. Every soldier knows it. And that temunah is very important. And Job is saying, "Assign me a temunah, an appointed time to be in my grave." Why does he say that? He goes on, "Thou shalt call, and I will answer thee. Thou wilt have a desire to the work of thine hands." As though he's going to call Job forth from the grave. Well, I'll tell you what he is. In Job 19:25, it goes on, "For I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh will I see God." And he says, "Whom I shall see for myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and not another." He says, "I'll see him with these eyes, my eyes, Job's eyes, not some other." He's not talking here about reincarnation or something of that sort. He comes back as someone else or something else. No. Job, he will live. God will desire the work of his hands, Job's body. He will take him forth from the grave at some appointed time, and he will see his Redeemer with his own eyes. Well, this is endurance of, he's been down in his grave, as I say, 4,000 years, and he's awaiting the future resurrection. Imagine. The ultimate Christian faith is the same as Job's faith. It's in a resurrection to come. We are assured at Matthew 5:8 in the Sermon on the Mount, "The pure shall see God," the Lord said. In 1 Corinthians 2:9, "Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, nor heart perceived what God has prepared for us." We eventually will see God face to face. 2 Corinthians 5:10 says, "All must appear before the judgment seat of Christ." Therefore, we will stand with our bridegroom face to face with the Messiah, with the Lord Jesus Christ. Seeing the Lord face to face is a scriptural matter of the utmost gravity. This is the promise we have in our future, in eternity, to be one with God and see him and be with him, as we will be with Christ in the judgment seat, face to face, reviewing our works. You know, when Moses saw God, his face kind of glowed. In Exodus 34, it says he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. And when Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come nigh him. It says, until Moses had done speaking with them, in verse 33, he put a veil on his face. But when Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he took the veil off until he came out. And again, when he's outside, the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face shone, and Moses put the veil upon his face again until he went in to speak with the Lord. It pictures, in a way, our marriage to the Lord. You know, in the Jewish wedding, the night that the bridegroom comes like a thief in the night and steals the bride away, her face is veiled, because through the entire engagement, whenever she went out, she wore a veil. She was already spoken for, and that's the way they marked their engaged girls. But even the night when he picks her up, he takes her through the streets, and when they arrive at the wedding and the guests are assembled, the guests can't see the bride's face because she wears the veil. When she goes into the chamber with her bridegroom, then she removes the veil. And they don't see her face until at the end, at the marriage supper, what we call the reception, at the end of 7 days. Then they can see her face. But we are veiled in front of the world. The veil is our faith. It's what separates us from the world. And we will be veiled until we're with Christ, in which case our veil is off, which is to say, you know, we are very good Christians for each other down here, but when we're with him, he knows us well, every work we've done, good and bad, and he reviews those with us in that judgment seat. And so, as the congregation could not see the face of Moses after he saw God, the wedding guests cannot see the face of the bride when her bridegroom brings her. Only he sees her face in the bridal chamber. Well, it's a beautiful image. The idea of endurance is also expressed in Luke 22:31 and 32, where the Lord speaks of strengthening the brethren. He's talking with Peter, and he says, Simon, he calls him Simon, to keep your faith and strengthen the brethren, because the Lord really knows what endurance Christianity takes. You know, if we weren't to do some assignment to use our gifts to accomplish good works in this life, we could go on to heaven the day we're saved. There's no reason to stay down here in this world, be separated, wear a veil, be workers in a field, soldiers in an army, other than if we win more souls, if we testify of him, if our good works impress this world to come to God, to see God as we're going to see God face to face. So the image is that we must endure a long time, and so the Lord cautions Peter to start with, to endure. And unfortunately that passage ends with Peter saying, oh, I'll endure anything for you, Lord, and the Lord say, will you now? You'll deny me 3 times. And that does happen. Immediate example of what a kind of a phony assurance of faith can lead us to, or maybe a lesson in how hard it is to really keep the purest faith. Well, and there's a passage addressed to the Jews, Matthew 24:13. This is about the signs of the end. The disciples have asked the Lord, what will be the signs of thy coming and of the end of the age? And the Lord lists out a bunch of them. We're very familiar. False Christs, false prophets, wars and rumors of wars, famine, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, travail, betrayals, iniquity, so many things that are characteristic of the tribulation period. And he is talking to the Jews. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Most emphatically, we recognize Israel in there. Israel is hated of all nations, other than our own nation, I suppose, and I sometimes wonder about us. And there's no other nation, large or small, especially so small as Israel, that is hated by all nations. But, you know, the United Nations holds special meetings to talk about every move of the Israeli government, not caring that thousands of Christians are killed, thousands of Muslims are killed in different wars and different revolutions around the Eastern Hemisphere and so on, but caring that the Israelis are building an apartment building and so on. This is hatred, the hatred of all nations, betrayal, offense. And there's an interesting passage toward the end of the chapter, well, in Matthew 24:13, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. This is why it is not addressed to the church. The church is saved now and doesn't have to endure to the end of the tribulation, obviously. I believe the church is going in the rapture before the tribulation period. But the Jews who are not saved now, who we don't witness to or don't witness to successfully, must somehow, if they're to be saved, endure all the way to the end. That is, to when the second coming is, at the end of all this tribulation and the start of the kingdom, in order to be saved, in order to be there when he comes down to the Mount of Olives and they can look upon him whom they've pierced and mourn for him as for an only son. So it is for the Jews. And for the church, it's up to us to endure to the rapture.
Walk down the Mount of Olives. Sail across the Sea of Galilee. Ride to the summit of Masada. Float in the Dead Sea. Find the treasures of Petra.
Explore the Holy Land for yourself. Join me on our next tour to Israel. Come walk with us in the shadows of Abraham, David, Paul, the champions of faith. Travel the length and breadth of the Promised Land. Discover the Jewish roots of your Christian faith. From baptism in the Jordan River to communion at the Garden Tomb, your trip to Israel will be a spiritual experience you will never forget. Come, join us.
Tour the Holy Land with Zola Levitt.
Well, our location was in the beautiful Judean wilderness. There's real desert just practically right outside Jerusalem, and reminds us of the great days of Moses, the Wadi Kelt. Well, now we're going to testimonies of Jewish and Gentile believers that come right out of the book of Hebrews, same lives of faith.
And through all of this
is Robert Kaplan, who found enduring faith when he accepted Yeshua as his Lord.
I came out of what I'm going to call a fairly standard American conservative Jewish background with an education that let me know, with no questions asked, I am Jewish. I am a Jew. I am happy about that. I'm proud about that. You know, the fact that when I was in college, as an example, I met a group of people who trained me professionally to become a medium. If you'd asked me at that time, "Are you a Jew?" You know, I'd shrug. Well, of course. You know, I didn't know about Deuteronomy 18, of course. You know, and if I had, I wouldn't have taken it seriously because you know, it's just stuff that I learned about. Later on, I went to Israel. I lived in Israel for a year. I lived and studied for a while in Mea Shearim in a yeshiva. And there was a rabbi, actually his name was Moshe ben Lazarus, which I thought was a really neat play on words in retrospect, using an orange. You know, he said, how much research and development would it take for us to create this orange? Therefore, let's look at the hand. Now, let's talk about God. And I said, wow, you're right. Okay, so at that time, I returned back to America, and within a few months, I had a vision, an extremely powerful vision. The vision took me through what I'm assuming was the wrath of God and then the dissolving of the elements of the earth. It was the reason the vision occurred was because I had just completed, at the age of 21, reading the book of Matthew for the first time in my life. So I read the book of Matthew. I fell asleep. I had this vision that my knee still bothers me from. There was an incident that occurred during the vision where my knee was hurt. My knee still bothers me from that. I call it my sin knee. So I knew at that point, there was no doubt, never has been from that point, Jesus is Yeshua, is God, is Lord, period. How he does it, I don't know. For a while, because of my theology, I thought I could understand it. During this time, I met a Jewish lady. We became married. Because of my intellect, I was able to theologically comfort her from time to time and say, don't worry about this, you know, I can explain it to you. Our daughter was born when our daughter was verbal enough to actually hear me teaching her about Yeshua. My wife became frantic, and our relationship soured beyond reconciliation. As a matter of fact, at one point I was teaching Jewish history at a Reformed synagogue in Texas, and my wife finked on me to the rabbi, and I was fired from this job. Nonetheless, I knew the Lord has me. I am going to keep moving forward. That marriage eventually ended in a divorce. I lost, in essence, custody of my daughter. My wife tried to keep me away from her. She didn't want this girl corrupted by these insane teachings of mine. I'm Jewish, and yet there's this stuff about Jesus. You know, I don't care if you call him Yeshua or you know, howdy doody. You know, you're gonna drive your daughter as crazy as I believe you to be. Then something occurred in her life, and I don't know if it was a voice or a vision or a conviction, but she said, I think that I've been treating you too harshly with these convictions. Can I try and understand something now of what you believe? We reconciled, we remarried. My daughter then had a messianic upbringing from that point. So my endurance is still my endurance, and the Lord is still the Lord, and my life, thank God, is still His, not mine.
Christine and Lauren Thomas can relate to Moses and enduring faith because they too have had to walk through the wilderness. Some said their newborn baby would never survive.
It began when we conceived, and there was difficulty with the pregnancy on into her birth, and then a year and a half after her birth with the different surgeries that the baby went through. And each time you think, Lord, is this the end of our trial, the end of our test? But we just had to keep enduring and keep going. Moses led the Israelites through the wilderness, and they thought, Lord, is this the last lap, you know? And he'd say, no, you need to finish the course, keep going. I'll lead you out when it's time. We never knew when the time out was going to be, but we would just say, well, we've made it this far, another lap, we can endure another one. I mean, there wasn't much choice.
When you're going through something like that, you're totally consumed with the circumstances of what's going on around you. Last thing you want to do is pray. Last thing you want to do is get alone with God and build your faith at that time. But it's so important that you continue on and do that, because that's what's going to carry you, that and the prayers of other people. So we kept at it. We just kept praying, but the circumstances that were going on at the time were pretty powerful, and it's very easy to get off focus and not understand that God is still in control. You know, we still need to get back to Him.
The baby was born 2.5 months early, so she was in the hospital for 2 months before we could bring her home. When we brought her home, she was with us 1 week before she got sick and had to go back in. We thought, oh, surely, Lord, this is the end. We'll have our baby home with us. Enduring nights of emergency room trips, going to the hospital, bleeding, thinking the child was lost. So they had to do an operation to open up her windpipe. And at that point, she was in an ICU unit for weeks, and she was paralyzed so that she could heal from the operation, the surgery to her throat. And then even after that, the healing was not as expected, and there was some scar tissue formed, so they had to go back in. So we just kept putting on our armor. You know, we keep that shield of faith right up there, blocking the doubt and the depression, the discouragement that would come in.
There was a scripture in Acts that we taped to her little incubator that she was in when she was born in the hospital, and it talked about how God was not served by human hands, but He alone has the power to give life and breath to every living creature. And we knew that He had our baby in His hands, and we had to surrender her to Him. We had to not let it be dependent upon us, but give it up and give it to God and say, God, this is in your hands. And she was your child before she was ever our child.
Celeste today is just the picture of health. She's a walking miracle. She blesses us every time we see her, and if we forget where God's brought us, we just look at her and realize, you know, the little trial we're going through now is minuscule compared to what He brought us through. So she's a joy to have in our family now.
Your sacrifice at hand, Lord, I hear you weeping, sorrow for what might have been, your hand outstretched upon the cross, reaching for the sons of men. Lord, I hear you praying for those who still are lost, to simply ask, forgive me, Lord. I understand the cost. Lord, I hear you weeping, sorrow for what might have been, your hand outstretched upon the cross, reaching for the sons of men. Lord, I hear you praying for those who still are lost,
Well, you know how in a restaurant they tell you the chef's suggestion. Well, that song is the composer's suggestion on this album. Hearing You. I composed that when I was a guest in a house that overlooked the Pacific Ocean. I mean, I was just looking at unending, the beauty of God's creation and peace and quiet and just, I don't know, the song came to me there, and it's a really special one. Suzanne Davies is the singer. Davis, I should say. She married Danny Davis. They were in Beloved Thief together. If you have seen the musical, he kept pouring the cup for her, putting it in front of her. She kept lifting it. After the show was over, they decided to get married. And they have 2 children now, and that was, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe more. And Suzanne's come back to sing for us. And she was also in the role of Mary in our Christmas musical, Mine Eyes Have Seen. Now, the book of Hebrews commends Moses' ministry. In Hebrews 11:29, it says, "By faith they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, which the Egyptians, essaying to do, were drowned." And he is especially commended in this chapter on faith. Well, next week we'll take up Joshua and Rahab, a very exciting story. Whenever I mention Rahab, I like to say what she said. As a Gentile in the land, not a Jew, she said, "I know that the Lord hath given you the land," she said to Joshua. Well, you can get the video series now. We'll have it ready. 10 programs, plus the extra, the music show with the video footage and the actors and so on. Really 11 programs for $99. I think that's a pretty good deal. And it is the way to study. You know, you can stop the tape. You can play it any time. You can bring friends in and show it to them. So get the video series. If you don't have a VCR, it's a good time to get one. The prices have fallen. I really recommend it. We can supply any of our programs to you on videotape at any time. And our Levitt letter and our catalog, always free of charge. And remember the funds, folks. We need the help. And Shalom Yerushalayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.